Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Mike Force Podcast. If you're tuning in, it is our premiere episode of the Mike Force Podcast on YouTube. So you could actually see my beautiful face on the tube. Guys, you've asked for this, so I'm giving it to you. I'm just giving you what you want. Very cool that the Mike Force Podcast has its own channel. Wanted to do that because we have great sponsors that take care of us. And you, as valuable consumers of this media, have been taking care of us. You've been taking care of my company, Fieldcraft Survival. You've been taking care of our partners, and we sure do appreciate you. If you like this podcast on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, you hit the notification tab, because we're going to continue to keep bringing it to you. It's not an elaborate setup. I got my little cool picture that was gifted me in the back. I have Shackleton's boat, the Endurance, over here. And I'm self-recording it because I'm going to be doing these podcasts once a week based on your input. So leave comments, leave questions, leave all the things that you want to leave here on this channel, the Mike Force Podcast channel on YouTube. And then most certainly, if you're listening to this podcast, leave good feedback. If you're listening to it on Spotify, on iTunes, wherever you're at, make sure you subscribe and leave that feedback. Man, I got a lot of stuff to cover today. If you're watching me on YouTube, I'm drinking coffee, Black Rifle coffee, of course, but sorry for the delay there on audio. Guys, I want to talk about some of the things that are pressing in the world today, especially Ukraine. You've been asking me about Ukraine, and I'm going to give you my opinion based on my operational experience and background, and even experience working with planning operations and different things around Ukraine. So I'll give you my feedback most certainly. But first, let's talk about this content release and drop on my YouTube channel called Mike Glover Actual. If you guys are listening to the YouTubes, as part of my routines, man, I use YouTube for the Google search, for education, for entertainment, and I'm certainly spending a lot of time there on my own providing the content. I'm in a good position as an entrepreneur, because I have a hardworking team that, man, allows the company to run on its own, which has allowed me to focus on my passions in education and content, and my own personal aspirations, including racing. I have a great team of all-stars, including my instructors and trainers that train every single weekend. Thank you so much for going out there and training civilians. 160 plus courses in the first quarter of 2021. I'll be involved where I can be. Most of that time is going to be spent training law enforcement for free. I just got back from Idaho, running a small survival seminar for my buddies' dojo, a jiu-jitsu studio called Spartan Academy, or Spartan Training Academy in Coeur d'Alene. Big shout out to Matt and the crew there. Got to train some law enforcement there in a survival, a kind of a mindset survival officers course, as well as this weekend on the 29th, I am running a free survival workshop here in Heber City. If you're listening to this podcast and you got some time to sign up, it's the 29th of January on Saturday. I'll be offering that course. You can sign up at fieldcraftsurvival.com. Also, this has allowed me to kind of focus my attention on different passions of mine, which is why I've lined out 3 separate playlist channels on Mike Glover Actual. The first one is Combat Reacts. Now, I notice a lot of people do Reacts videos. They're super fun. I love watching the Reacts videos. But a lot of people who do the Reacts, the narration for the Reacts, that feedback, don't necessarily have a lot of experience, and that's okay. That's not a big deal, but to be able to provide kind of my insight in tactics and things that are happening on the ground that might be misconstrued is really cool to do. I mean, it's fun for me, but 2, it's kind of good to give some context to these very viral and popular videos that are on the YouTube. I started a playlist channel too called The Story Behind the Photo. Originally, that was me and Nick on the Fieldcraft Survival channel, but I have a crap ton of photos. I also thought about friends of mine like Andy Stumpf. Andy and Jack Carr will be here on February 5th doing a leadership and entrepreneurship seminar workshop called Professional Development, Leadership Entrepreneurship. It'll be February 5th all day. You can hang out with me, Jack Carr, and Andy Stumpf, learning about leadership, learning about our lessons learned over our careers. You know, two naval officers that were SEALs that had profound and impactful careers, as well as entrepreneurs. And we're going to share all that information and do what GBRS would say is knowledge transfer to allow you guys to be better prepared and better focused in 2022. That's February 5th. You can go on fieldcraftsurvival.com. But those guys have their photos as well. Like, imagine I have Andy Stumpf on and he's got a picture from the Jessica Lynch raid. He doesn't think it's a big deal. I'm always like Jap slapping him. No offense to Japanese, I'm Korean. I always say, you ever been Jap slapped by a Korean? But if I can get Andy to talk about some of those photos, or Jack to talk about some of those photos, and the context and the story behind the photo, man, super cool, man. One, historically archiving that information is important to me. So having those conversations is cool. And last but not least, my rally journey. Big shout out to Black Rifle Coffee Company for hooking me up, allowing me to be the driver for their race car while I get myself kind of unscrewed. If you haven't heard, it was my birthday recently. Happy birthday to me. I mean, geez. All kidding aside, I was under a blanket my entire birthday because I had, I'm pretty sure the Delta variant of COVID, which sucked really bad, but you know, that's what immunity's for. I mean, people get sick, people heal, and people are more resilient through that. So anyway, I digress. Through this rally journey, because I've been given the opportunity to race their car, it allows me a little bit of buffer time to get my car built and to focus on, you know, my journey into motorsports. It's always been a personal passion of mine, but it's the perfect culmination of preparedness. Like, if you want to be the best in the world at anything, you want to be better prepared at anything, well, it starts with preparedness. It starts with planning. It starts with brainstorming, asking questions, building a training plan, building a team, training on technical skill sets, becoming more resilient, not as just a technical driver, but in your mindset as well. It's all these great things that I'm super pumped and stoked about leading into the American Rally Association ARA series. My first race will be March 18th and 19th in Salem, Missouri, and 100 Acre in the Woods. Actually, I got to remind myself, I got to register today for that specific event. And I'll be racing with Rally Ready's team, and it's going to be super fun. I'm super stoked for it, so I hope you guys are as well. We will have the Fieldcraft team out there. You guys can come see us, come break bread with us, hang out, drink Black Rifle coffee, and watch me hopefully not crash. And, you know, it's going to be fun, man. One, I want to have fun. Two, I want to bring people together and just show you this journey through kind of my lens, through my optic. And that's my rally journey on my playlist at Mike Glover Actual on the YouTube. All right, guys, Ukraine. Oh, man. Let me get some coffee for this. Hold on. So, okay. So just some historical background and context for this. I do have a little bit of background in, you know, counterterrorism and planning NEO operations, you know, non-combatant evacuation operations. And when the debacle that was Afghanistan, that has so quickly been forgotten about, when it went down, I came out and positioned myself in having a voice and opinion with somebody who has experience in doing NEO evacuations. I planned the NEO evacuation for Libya, post Benghazi. I planned the NEO evacuation for Mali during one of the coup attempts. And when I see Ukraine, I have some historical references and context. But let's start off with the understanding of where we're at position-wise with drawing the line in the sand with Russia. So we have drawn the line in the sand. There's no doubt. But that sets a precedent. I wouldn't say a dangerous precedent. I wouldn't say it's the safe bet. But I'll say we definitely set a precedent there, because we basically have said, and I say basically have said because Biden in his 2-hour long, I believe his first major press conference, which is in bizarro world that we're a year into this, and that was his first major long interview. He was fumbling all over the place. One of the issues that he had with Ukraine is he said with Russia, if it's a minor incursion, then we might be talking something different as far as retaliation against Russia. But then he backtracked, well, the White House backtracked and said, no, we mean any kind of incursion. Like if you do anything, if you come over the border, that's going to be an invasion and we're going to do something. So we've positioned 8,500 troops. All of the media is talking about this Russia thing, and it's blowing my mind because, one, Russia is a superpower, just like China. Russia and China are in bed with each other. A third of Russia's oil goes to Eastern and European countries. A third of all their oil comes from there. So if you're talking about NATO and you're talking about sanctions and you're talking about this is the way we're going to retaliate against Russia, then that's one facet, right? That's one line of strategic military planning. But if you're talking about 8,500 troops and military action, that's a complete different ball of wax. So the question is, do you want to go to war with Russia? And I would think the answer to that is no, especially over Ukraine. Now, Ukraine has been technically for the last 13, 14 years in basically a war with Russia. When Crimea was given up because they voted so overwhelmingly to go back to Russia, which is right below Ukraine, that was problematic. But the estimates are 10 to 14,000 people have already been killed in this conflict. Now, why would Russia want Ukraine? Well, man, it's strategically the buffer pad to European theaters. It's also a jumping point to launching attacks into Syria, into the Middle East, and a buffer zone to launch those operations and attacks against potential enemies of Russia. So, yeah, they would want it. I mean, Ukraine is massive. And when you look at Ukraine in comparison to Crimea, which is very small in comparison, Crimea is being used as a military state, an operational jumping point. There's a couple of big pieces of media on that position that I encourage you guys to educate yourself on. But let me just make this point. December of last year, we're talking a month ago, the estimates are between 180 and 200,000 immigrants crossed our border illegally. Millions over the last year under the Biden administration. Hundreds of thousands. That's more than all the Decembers before that, the last 3 prior to that combined. 180,000 plus immigrants, whom are not just Mexican, but are from different countries. China, the Middle East, South America, and the list goes on. A report was just released recently via a notification from the TSA where Mexican immigrants were allowed to use their warrants for their arrest, which is a form, as proof of identification to jump on an airplane in lieu of identification because they couldn't get an ID card. Let me say that again. Illegal immigrants who are here illegally are using warrants for their arrest as proof of identification to be able to travel CONUS within the continental United States to be able to jump on an airplane. I just flew out of Salt Lake City to Idaho and to Texas recently and saw a handicapped person being like groped by TSA agents surrounding this person, who most certainly was an American citizen. I'm assuming that, but most certainly likely was an American citizen. And you have illegal immigrants that are here illegally in troves, using warrants for their arrest as proof of identification. That's bizarre world. Welcome to it, right? Why do I make that distinct correlation? Because if we are, as a nation, deploying 8,500 troops to, which is bizarre world. I mean, one, you don't need to deploy or get, like they said, we're getting them ready. We already have that in Eastern theaters. They didn't say we're getting 8,500 on the ground in Ukraine. We're prepping them, and then we're advertising that we're sending munitions, which I'm assuming is like us bowing our chest, that we're sending munitions to Ukraine because we will get involved. How involved do we want to get when we can't even take care of our own national security? I mean, we think, we as a government, I don't even want to put myself in this case, the FBI and the National Security Director has just said the number one threat to national security in America is domestic terrorism. It's white supremacy. I find that fascinating because I was, like everybody else, tethered to the media when Black Lives Matter and Antifa were burning down our country, literally. The guesstimates are Black Lives Matter during the protest and during the riots of burning down our country in every major metropolitan city that they were protesting in, that turned into a riot, every single one of them, that a couple dozen people were murdered during those riots. A couple dozen, including African Americans. So BLM, a Marxist movement to destroy the nuclear family, to destroy the government. They literally said, the anti-fascists, which included Antifa and BLM, literally came out and said, we want to rip the current president out of seat. And that was, tied to a political issue. But how is that not domestic terrorism? How is that not the number one problem to national security? I mean, I can't imagine that you show up in troves in like black pajamas and ski mask like Antifa did, looking like a bunch of medieval times reenactors, ready to LARP the world. How is that not seen as being anti-government and potentially domestic terrorism? I don't understand that. But white supremacy is because of January 6th. Now, I don't even know that correlation. I can't make that distinct correlation because on that day, yes, there were police officers who were brutally beaten, and I find it sad that anybody could justify whatever took place outside of the protest where people were actually protesting when they started to make moves against the Capitol and then make entry into the Capitol, how that was right or justified. Was it an insurrection? No. I know insurrections. I know insurgency. I know domestic and foreign terrorism. That wasn't any of that. It was a bunch of clowns that were disorganized, that broke into the Capitol building, that smeared our democracy. A police officer who was beaten later had a heart attack. I know that was a casualty and a tragic one at that. And I know an unarmed protester, a female who was trying to make entry into the Capitol building was shot and killed with a pistol by one of the state Capitol police officers. Is that an insurrection? Is that terrorism? And we're focused on that, which means our country is ass backwards right now. Man, our priorities are insanely ass backwards. This reminds me of those days because I remember of Waco, Texas, and Ruby Ridge. What are we doing? I mean, have we forgotten about ISIS? We just had, wasn't covered in the media at all, one of the largest breakout of ISIS prisoners in recent history in Syria, where now hundreds, if not thousands, of ISIS terrorists are on the loose again. We just handed over billions of dollars of arms and munitions to terrorist organizations. But we're blaming Trump for that. I don't want to make this political because it shouldn't be, but now it's political. Because 13 Americans were killed in a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device that killed 13 Americans needlessly because we used the wrong tactics. And I don't understand what the hell's happening here. Now we're worried about Ukraine. Look, I feel bad for the people of Ukraine. Yes, NATO should be involved in this because they've committed to it. I get that. But sanctions are the talk. Sanctions, I guess, are the actions. But why are we playing like we're going to move or preposition 8,500 troops like we're going to do something? Do we really want to be in a war with Russia? I mean, and do we want to take those actions right now against Russia? For what? We can't even square away our own country. 100,000 people have died of fentanyl overdoses, mostly fentanyl overdoses, in a year sum up. That's breaking records. The cartels own inner city crime and drugs that are destroying our country. Yet we don't want to address that issue. Illegal immigration is not just of farmers that want to come across to have a better life. It's about drug money and cartels and criminal enterprises that are taking on our country and destroying it. But we don't care. We're just turning a blind eye. I mean, those hundreds of thousands of immigrants, they're just loose. We just turned them loose. But we're focused on January 6th. We're focused on Ukraine. But why aren't we focused on these real issues that we need to deal with, like poverty, like inner city crime, homicide rates through the roof, like BLM, a racist movement, like Antifa, a domestic terrorist organization? I just don't get it, guys. I don't get it. So if you want my opinion on Ukraine, one, I think it's a mistake. I think it's a mistake for us to get involved. Do I think that there's responsibility for us to take care of people throughout the world? Yes. But I have the opinion that Ukraine especially is a NATO action. For us as whether it's the president, the administration, or as a country, to position ourselves as the front runner here, that we're going to put Americans' lives at risk to fight a proxy war in Ukraine, bad move. Very bad move. Look, we've buried our head in the sand on multiple occasions, including Libya, including Syria. Remember when President Obama drew the line in the sand? If you do anything to hurt innocent people of Syria with a weapon of mass destruction, including chemical weapons, we will draw the line in the sand and we will retaliate. How'd that work out? Because they did it again, and we did nothing. And what did that result in? We forget ISIS in Syria. And how did we clean that up? Under Trump. Because the foreign policy was right. The gloves are off. Let's kill and capture as many as we can. And we destroyed ISIS off the face of the planet. The biggest risk to our country is Islamic extremists. Do we think that problem just went away? Do we not remember the lessons learned from September 11th of 2001, where 19 motivated terrorists from Saudi Arabia decided to test and execute the most horrific terrorism attack on our country in its history? Do we forget about that? where 3,000 plus Americans were killed and 4 different aircraft with box cutters? Do we forget that in 2014, when the initiative of ISIS exploded through the roof? Did we forget that? Did we forget that when we pulled out of Afghanistan and we left a vacuum and void for terrorism to take hold and grasp again, to build up their enterprise, that's not going to be a national security risk? I was in Libya post-Benghazi. I facilitated and targeted the guys responsible for the attack September 11th of 2012 in Benghazi. And what did we do? We tucked it back and we bowed our heads in shame and left another void, left another nightmare for another terrorist organization to take over. We can't, JSOC doesn't have enough assets to watch it all. But here we are again, making the same mistakes. The biggest threat to our national security in the next 3 years, in the next 3 months, potentially in the next 3 days, is that Islamic extremists right now are planning with night vision, with anti-tank, anti-material, with the best weapon systems and technology in the world because we handed it over to them in Afghanistan. They're planning the next 9/11. And their best time is now because we're at our weakest. Have you seen the President of the United States talk? Like, holy crap. I don't ever want to turn this into the Mike Force podcast into a political commentary. But, dude, this is mind-boggling that this guy is the President of the United States. It's embarrassing to me. I was embarrassed when President Trump was the president because I'm like, God, this guy's a little too much for me. This isn't very presidential. I like the balance. I like the charisma of Obama, but without the policies that I hated of his. Where's the balance here? We sure lost that and tipped the scale of balance when we got Biden, because it's like that dude is like sleeping. Man, it drives me insane. How's that going to unfold? Well, the Beijing Olympics are about to kick off, and Russia's invested. So it's likely to be post that. I mean, he'd be an idiot to do anything because it's Ukraine, but why would he not position troops? Why would he not antagonize us and basically assess? It's what social media, it's what troll farms, it's what technology, it's what viruses have been doing in this probing of testing and assessing our national security. If you haven't listened to, I say listen. If you haven't, see, this is the great thing about YouTube. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to grab this book real quick. Do I have, okay. Making sure I have pants on because, you're filming this and you're listening to me. But this is the great thing about YouTube is I could pull this book down real quick. Give me 1 second. Man, that didn't take long, but this is, so I'm in my office in my home studio. But if you're not watching this, you can see this. This is The Devil's Hand that was gifted to me by Jack Carr, who's a very good friend of mine. And it's a special edition Jack Carr that has a handwritten note, a leather The Devil's Hand bookmark, and the book signed by Jack. An amazing presentation of one of my favorite series, and not one of my favorite series ever written in fiction. I mean, Jack Carr is one of the most talented fiction writers of our time. He makes Tom Clancy look like, well, I won't insult Tom Clancy because he's a great writer as well, but it's just next level because Jack Carr's lived it. And so, Terminal List and then the latest The Devil's Hand talks about all of this drama that's unfolding with even China, which China, let's just take a step back. I just had the Delta variant of COVID. I had COVID a year ago and have likely had all variants. How have we not tried to figure out the origin story of where this came from? Because if this was a deliberate thing, then it was the greatest disguised weapon of war in history that killed nearly 1 million Americans. I mean, how are we not talking about the origin story of that? You know, a lot of these things are getting lost in news cycles where we aren't holding politicians responsible or accountable for their actions. I mean, when we look at Benghazi, I was a part of that the Benghazi Libya debacle. I was in the planning session the day that Benghazi went down, and all these things transpired. Who was held accountable for that? I mean, you got guys in the military, including myself, who, if we had anything to do with that, our entire lives would be destroyed. Not just careers. We'd be in Leavenworth. Yet you could be a politician like Hillary Clinton, delete classified information, mishandle it, misrepresent it, and completely have a botched operation like Benghazi with no reaction force, with no recovery operations, with no, basically just saying, hey, it wasn't our problem. And then leading into Afghanistan, doing the same, and nobody's held accountable. I don't see how that is a thing now. So if you're a tactical guy and you make the mistake because you call the wrong grid, or you have a friendly fire incident, or you kill innocent civilians, or whatever, name the travesty of war, that the mistakes that are made, your career, your life will be burned to the ground. But if you're a politician, you're immune to it. Let's talk about the pullout of Afghanistan that kicked this whole thing off. 13 Americans killed in a suicide attack. We pulled out every American. We didn't just leave a contingent. We didn't occupy the airfield like we should have maintained. We pulled everything out. And then when asked, hey, do you feel bad about that? Not even close. Not only does he not feel bad, but he thinks he did good. That's a huge problem. This is why we're leading to these issues like Ukraine that are going to tip the scale of potential war. And this guy is going to get us into a national security debacle where I think Al-Qaeda, that's watching, that's most certainly listening, is going to use it as an opportunity to attack. Superpowers like China and Russia, who are playing Facebook to play you every single day, who are doing it every single day in cyber warfare, where we don't have a declared war. They've been fighting in the trenches, and we're just paying attention now. We're going to lose. Why I'm a big advocate for being prepared, being more self-reliant, is because you have nobody to depend on but yourself, but people in your own backyard, in your own community. I mean, think about this. Like 18 months ago, I was being attacked for starting American contingency. I could literally be in jail right now if I took wrong or unethical actions, even during January 6th. January 6th, American Contingency, which is my community-based group, which still exists on the .com, 50,000 members, hundreds of groups. Big shout out to my AMCON family. American Contingency was asked by members and by everybody, hey, what's the guidance here? What are we doing? We get involved? Let's go protest. And I was like, absolutely not, because we need to be self-reliant. We don't need to be dependent on actors that we don't know. I don't know who the hell the Proud Boys are. I don't know who these 1%ers or 3%er, whatever the hell they are. I don't know these guys. I don't know what they stand for, and I don't care. Because the American Contingency Movement is about community, and it's about getting yourself and your family and your community better prepared to take care of yourselves. Not for Mike to come rescue you, not for a quick reaction force to come rescue you, but for you to take care of yourself and your own community. So when asked, I said, no one's going to that. And if you do go, we're staying on the outskirts of the protest to report information for situational awareness for those who live in the general area of the community. Because we saw in Portland, Seattle, Baltimore, Chicago, all these places where BLM and Antifa were burning their cities to the ground, that not only were you having to be dependent on yourselves, but you had no dependency on first responders because they weren't coming, because politicians were telling them not to come. And that sucked. But what role did we take? We took the higher road and said, no, man, this is about community, about self-reliance. So you need to be getting self-reliant and stop getting so dependent on all these actors, all these emulators, all these institutions. Like I said, maybe it's you that's your first response. Maybe it's you that's going to save your own ass. Maybe it's you who needs to look at running for mayor, for governor, of chief of police, a sheriff, to stand up in your own communities. Hell, a senator in Congress. Big shout out to Tony Cowden, who's running in North Carolina for a seat, because he's stepping up and like, man, I need to step up and run for Congress, for the House of Representatives, because nobody else is. I want to see Green Berets. I want to see school teachers. I want to see football coaches. I want to see parents standing up and taking over in their own communities. I've noticed, man, there's a lot of radical ideology, this Marxist ideology that's taking over, and I don't like it. I like American traditions and values, and that's what I'm going to stand up for. Guys, 36 minutes in the podcast, I give you my opinion on Ukraine, not a deep dive. I want you to leave your comments and feedback below. What I'll start doing as I queue these up is, if you leave me your questions and comments down below, I will answer those in the first segments of the next episode and go through them and read them, especially if you're a troll. I think troll comments are funny. Sorry about the raspy voice, man. I got the vid. What I'm excited about, next week I'll be flying out to, next couple weeks I'll be flying out to the New York Stock Exchange to support Evan Hafer and ringing the bell for his public offering of Black Rifle Coffee. I don't care about your opinion on Black Rifle Coffee as a business, as an entity. Here's what I want you to know. The fact that a veteran-owned entrepreneur is taking a business in 7 years public to benefit thousands of Americans that are employed by Black Rifle, but more that are going to be employed by Black Rifle, is a significant achievement. And I'm proud of Evan. I'm proud of the Black Rifle Coffee team and the partnership that we have, and I'm excited about the future of that. As an entrepreneur, as somebody who has seen those highs and lows of business, that is an incredible feat, and I'm excited to see that future unfold. Guys, philcraftsurvival.com. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, all the channels that I mentioned before. I love you guys. I want you guys to be safe. I also want you to be informed. And we're going to certainly do that for you on the Mike Force podcast. Until next time, stay alert, stay alive. Peace out, guys.